Kick the main boss of the company out of your bar at a company drinks? Okay. I don't know if this is necessarily an MC, but it happened to my dad. He was one of the 3 partners at one of his former companies, about medium-sized. One day, he and his company went to a company drink. I don't think it was exactly a company party, but it was more than an after-work drink at the pub. Anyway, the bar was serving aperitifs, and my dad asked for his without ice, as he hates ice tainting his drink. The landlord, who was behind the bar, refused, and said the ice was mandatory. So, he served my dad's with ice. Dad accepted it, took the ice out, and laid it on the drain rack that goes under the beer drafts. The landlord ordered him to leave. My dad was half expecting it, but asked him to repeat himself. The landlord once again told him to leave. My dad said okay, and started to leave, and his company all started to file out after him. The landlord protested, no, you don't all have to leave, only he has to leave. One of the other staffers said something along the lines of, sorry mate. He's the big boss. We all go where he goes. So, they all left and went to another bar. They had made a reservation at the bar they were leaving, but they hadn't put down any deposit for it, and hadn't bought any drinks yet. The aperitifs had been complimentary, so the landlord didn't even get paid for those. Edit, this is something that keeps getting flagged up, which is a valid point I didn't explain properly. The drain racks my father put the ice on were on the counter between the bar and the customer. He didn't reach across the bar. Also, for clarity, landlord is what we call the guy who runs the establishment in the UK. Another word might be publican, although it wasn't a pub in this case, it was a bar. Now to the comments. Wish I could get the nice, awesome bosses that take us out for fun after work stuff, but no, I always get stuck working with the absolute dolts like this landlord. Anyway, that was a nice, short story. Thanks for sharing. It's not always that great. My last boss always threw wicked Christmas parties, open bar, fancy meal, he even got Scott Falconbridge to do some stand-up for us. Also took us to see a Blue Jays game in the Skybox. As amazing as all that is, it was done in lieu of any pay raises. There were guys who had been working there for years without an increase. I'm almost certain when minimum wage was raised a year or 2 ago it put my pay on par with the most senior guy in the store I worked at. It was done in lieu of any pay raises. That's some bullshit. On a quiet night after class, a bunch of us went to a sports bar that was known to be a bit picky on who it let in the door. Some stopped on the way to have a quick feed, me, some were taking their chance to have a quick ciggy, not me, and as a result instead of one group of around 20 there were several smaller groups. I was one of the last to arrive, and they wouldn't let me in because I had the wrong shoes on. Fine, whatever. The guy who they let in went to find the group and explained to them what had happened. The bouncer was trying to shoo me off, but then everyone else came down the stairs and out the door. The bar manager was trying to talk them out of leaving, and when they stopped, outside, to explain why, i.e., my shoes being wrong, he almost popped a vein in his head and went off at the bouncer. Turns out we were the only people inside. And because I had the wrong shoes on, we felt like we shouldn't be imposing upon their rules, so, we went next door and drank there, watching the bar manager rip it up the bouncer for causing such a big group to leave. I know no shirt, no shoes, no service is pretty universal, at least in the US, but what the hell kinda shoes were you wearing that were wrong for a sports bar? Edit. I know some bars and clubs have fancier standards or are just dicks about guys alone, or racist. But OP specifically said sports bar. I don't care much for sports so haven't been in many, but I've never even seen one with a bouncer, much less a dress code. Ironically, a pair of Nikes. Most of us were wearing runners/sneakers/ etc. We were in a trade school, some had boots, not steel toe capped, but I used to wear Nikes all the time back then. Womp womp. Guy was probably trying to stretch the free drinks with ice, but he should have just let your dad take out the ice cause the drink was already ducking poured at that point. Hopefully this got him to work that stick out of his ass. I hate too much ice too, so I usually follow up my no ice request with "but I understand you can't pour me more, I just don't like ice. Sorry." Some people are especially sensitive to cold, which is why I really hate this "there must be ice" rule. I always enjoy the flip side where I'm forced to kick out someone who is trashed in a large group, usually a boss if it's a work thing, and the rest go if he leaves, we leave. Like, yeah, I was hoping for that. Similar-ish story. When I was living in San Francisco, there was this bar in the Mission, let's call it Z, which was well known for letting people smoke weed they brought themselves. This was during the medical cannabis years prior to full recreational legalization. Because most of the bar was outdoor seating with rows of wooden picnic tables, porta potties, etc. A real classy joint. Well, they were also pretty well known for just randomly tossing people for smoking said weed, or really for any transgression they deemed worthy at that moment. Getting thrown out of Z at the time was almost a rite of passage for a 20-something living in the city. Well, one spring day my larger group of friends all decided to meet up at Z, and we locked down an entire long set of picnic tables. We hadn't even ordered our food yet, and only maybe 2 of 15 to 20 people had ordered drinks when 2 of my friends who were seated at the end of the table got selectively tossed, and rather rudely even for Z. So, the entire group was like "duck that," and got up and left. The last thing I saw as we walked out the door was the bar manager chewing out the bouncer who tossed us because he had just thrown out by far the biggest group in the place at the time, right before all of us were about to order dinner, drinks, etc. We laughed and took our business down the street. Zeitgeist. There is a distinct possibility you are correct. I had one story like this before. We worked in an industrial manufacturing spot in the oil industry, and our boss's bosses came in. That means the company gets taken out for a big feast for about 10 people, so nothing ridiculous. Well, they aren't the suit and tie kind of people. They're the Ariots and oil-stained white shirt types. We went to a decent Italian place, and when he tried to place a $1,000 deposit, they immediately told him to leave because they don't want our type ruining the reputation of their restaurant. Before he could even finish talking, he basically laughed, showed him the cash and said, "That's too bad, this could have been yours. Maybe you don't like this type of clientele, you shouldn't have opened a restaurant in West Texas." We left, went to a steakhouse instead, and that was the first time I've ever had surf and turf, and he left a massive tip for the other place for not discriminating us. Dressing up in West Texas means wearing the clean cowboy boots today. What a crap bartender. Other than diluting your drink, with or without ice, creates almost like 2 different drinks even though they have the same ingredients. Not just temperature and water content, but also how the ingredients mix together is different. It should be such a standard request to have the ice removed even for drinks that are normally served with ice. This reminds me of a festival I was working. The staff director tried ordering pizzas to the festival, like $400 worth. The pizza place said they refused to bring an order to the park. When she told them the amount she was ordering, they tried changing their mind, but it was too late. She had already decided to go elsewhere. The only thing I'd have loved to hear is that she slipped in a "can you recommend someone else who might?" It's one thing to not making small changes to your dishes after customer requests, but not even allowing them to consume their food or drinks their own way. That's a new low. What the hell kind of snobby place is that where a bartender won't grant an extremely simple and costless request? It's not even correctly snobby. If you're being snobby, good booze shouldn't be served with ice. It dulls the taste, and will dilute the drink as it melts. If you want it diluted, add the appropriate amount of water, spring water from the same area as the booze if you want to be a proper snob, but I've never taken things that far myself. It's likely they are serving less and using ice to hide that. I was chairperson of a student society. We met every week in a particular pub. We'd ask permission before advertising our meetings there. This one particular week the place was dead. We were literally the only group there. Whilst we had up to 70 people attend on weeks, we were planning trips etc. Our purely social meetings saw only about 15 people. As we were leaving, the landlord pulled me to one side and said we weren't spending enough on drinks, as most of us drank non-alcoholic drinks and would get one an hour. So, I said no problem, and we started meeting in another pub the following week. What an idiot. That is when he comes by and offers specials to try to get people to buy something. If they don't buy, then no reason to kick them out if there is no line out the door.